Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. What I thought we'd talk about today is, are the WBC failing Agit Kabayel? Agit Kabayel, in the prime of his career, 33 years of age, he is at the peak of his powers, and are the governing bodies, precisely the WBC, failing yet another top contender and giving opportunities to people who don't deserve it? Now, Agit Kabayel, like I said, 33 years of age, for me, no doubt, number 3 heavyweighter, and he's been number 3 for quite a while. I originally had Usyk, Joseph Parker, Kabayel. After Fabio Woodley beats Joseph Parker, Fabio Woodley no doubt jumps to number 2 because he's got a world title as well. But Agit Kabayel comfortably in the number 3 slot and well and truly overdue for a world title shot, in my opinion. So we're going to talk about all of that. But if you all could please head down the bottom there, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hype it up. It helps the algorithm and helps get this content spread wider across the community. So please do all that. And we're going to talk about Agit Kabayel. Now, Agit Kabayel, his run from Frank Sanchez, Arslanbek Makhmudov, these wins alike, have got into a position where you're looking at him and saying he is well and truly deserving of a world title shot. People thought he deserved it over Joseph Parker. For me, I thought Joseph Parker just nudged it, but following that defeat to Joseph Parker, of course, you give Fabio Woodley that opportunity as well, or Agit Kabayel, or even better, you have Fabio Woodley face Agit Kabayel and the winner takes on Usyk. But we all know the WBO mandated that Usyk takes on Fabio Woodley and the rest is history. Now, if we run through Agit Kabayel's, recent record, especially for dates here. So we got May 2024, Kabayel wins the WBC Continental Americas and the WBO NABO heavyweight titles, defeating Frank Sanchez round 7 KO. Fast forward to February 2025, he beats Zhili Zhang by round 6 KO, becomes the WBC interim world heavyweight champion. So we're now looking at well and truly over 12 months. Currently March, February he wins in 2025 to become the interim world title holder. In January of 2026, he defends it for the first time. So just shy of 12 months following becoming the interim champion, he defends it for the first time, defeating Damien Kaneba. Now, in that time, and now up until March, we haven't had the slightest sort of implication that the WBC has any thoughts whatsoever of mandating Alexander Usyk to take on Agit Kabayel. And for me, this is where they are failing yet another fighter. Now, if we compare this to something else, Fabio Woodley defeats Joseph Parker at the back end of last year, becomes the interim WBO champion, and is immediately mandated to take on Alexander Usyk, which is exactly what these governing bodies are put in for. It's for decisions like this. It is taking out any sort of emotion, taking any sort of corruption out of the fight game and saying, you're the number 1 contender, you're the number 2 contender, you're the number 3 contender, you're the champion, you're taking on him, all right? Because he's deserved that opportunity. No matter what the champion wants to do, no matter what, because the champion, if he wants to hold that belt, he is entitled to fight each and every single person that is vying for that belt, all right? If you want to be the world champion, you have to face the guys that also want to become world champion, those guys that are just shy of that opportunity. You have to beat the best to stay the best, and that is where the WBC are failing Agit Kabayel, because the WBO made no mistake. They came in, immediately mandated it, no matter what the decision Alexander Usyk was going to make, because the WBO, they probably lost a major payday, the fact that the WBO is not held by Alexander Usyk and Alexander Usyk's not going to defend that belt. But who cares, because Fabio Woodley deserved that opportunity. If you don't want to give him that opportunity, we're going to give him the belt and we're going to keep going forward, and he's going to have the heavyweight titles. And you know what? The WBO, it all goes around in circles, because now they're going to have a massive domestic grudge match between Daniel Dubois and Fabio Woodley, which will be a massive event. And as all things go, Usyk has now claimed that following Rico Verhoeven, he wants to take on Fabio Woodley or Daniel Dubois regardless. So it all comes back around. And this is where the WBC, I believe, are making a big mistake in not making sure that Alexander Usyk takes on Agit Kabayel. Now, Agit Kabayel, you could probably say that he has 3 to 5 to maybe a little bit longer left of his peak. All right, depending on results, depending on who he takes on. If he goes in there with Moses Atauma and gets blown out of the water, all of a sudden, you're probably saying goodnight to Agit Kabayel. Now, where my worries fall for Agit Kabayel is this. Agit Kabayel is currently the WBC interim, and he's the ring number 2. If we look at Alexander Usyk and what he wants to do, because that's the belt that Kabayel is looking for, the WBC, Alexander Usyk is going to take on Rico Verhoeven in May. All right? Daniel Dubois is going to take on Fabio Woodley in May. Following Usyk, if he gets past Rico Verhoeven, because it's not a guarantee, I thoroughly believe he will, but it's not a guarantee. If he beats Rico Verhoeven, you then fast forward to a point of which it's either late this year or early next year, we're going to see Alexander Usyk take on Daniel Dubois or Fabio Wardley. All right, all well and good. You want to get all the belts back. Fine. Following that, he says that he's going to have his last fight and it's going to be against Tyson Fury for all the gold. And I can see that fight happening very easily because Turki Al-Sheikh has made it very clear following the second fight between the two that he wants that fight as well. So I can see that fight quite easily being made. Enough money is going to be thrown everywhere. That fight's going to get made, all right? No matter who's arguing it. So this is where Agit Kabayel needs the support of the WBC, because if we look at that sort of roster of what Alexander Usyk's doing and what fighters around him are doing, Alexander Usyk beats Rico Verhoeven in May. Take your pick of Wardley or Dubois. Either way, it's going to be a firefight, and I could only imagine the amount of damage these two guys are going to do to each other. So let's say Daniel Dubois and Wardley go for an absolute war for about 6 or 7 rounds. Great. They're both injured. We're going to have to wait and see that winner take on Alexander Usyk either late this year or early next year. Mind you, Alexander Usyk only fights one time a year. Minus the 2 Tyson Fury fights, which happened, mid part of 2024 and the end of 2024, Alexander Usyk only fights one time a year, right? He fought only once last year, and he fought once he took on AJ. He only fights once a year, minus that Tyson Fury year, pretty much. So if he's only going to fight once a year, he takes on Rico Verhoeven in May. He takes on the Daniel Dubois Wardley winner probably early next year. What is he going to take on Fury the end of 2027, or is that going to be 2028? Like, we're just not going to know when these dates are going to fall. And with Agit Kabayel, how long do you let him be strung along holding an interim title before you say, well, no, the champion has to take him on? Because we're looking at the possibility of Agit Kabayel not getting a shot at a world title till the back end of 2027, maybe the earliest to 2028. Does Agit Kabayel really need to hold this title for 3 to 4 years before he gets a world title shot? If we look at similar cases to what Agit Kabayel's going through right now, Virgil Ortiz, he defeats Serhiy Boachuk in August of 2024. Since then, he's beaten Madrimov and Lubin. We are now in March of 2026, and we have not had the slightest sniff of Virgil Ortiz being mandated to fight against Sebastian Fundora. Sebastian Fundora is somebody that's, most previous fights are going to be Keith Thurman, which is coming up later this month, and Chordale Booker. What are we doing here for the WBC? Like, why aren't these fights being mandated? Why are these champions not taking on their interim title holders? And unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that, apart from probably money. All right, you get double the money if you have a champion and interim champion, because guess what? You get to hold 2 different events. All right, you get 2 different champions paying the fees. You get 2 different set of circumstances that get you money through the door. And that's basically all I can see from this situation. Now, lots of people will then say, all right, well, this is what we need Zuffa Boxing for. Well, unfortunately, from what I've seen from Zuffa Boxing, it's not a guarantee. All right, Zuffa Boxing is not a guarantee to solve problems like this. And the reason I say it's not a guaranteed solution, because unfortunately, Zuffa is in their infancy. We don't know how they're going to conduct business, but we know how they conduct business with the UFC. And I've seen things like John Jones, heavyweight champion of the world, gets to take on Stipe Miocic after facing Cyril Gane. There was a year between those 2 fights. Finally takes on Stipe Miocic, drags Tom Aspinall through the mud. He's sitting around in the wings holding that interim title belt for ages and ages and ages, waiting for a shot at John Jones. John Jones keeps holding off until finally he's got no choice and he says, all right, I'm just going to retire. And then Tom Aspinall's looking at 12 to 18 months of inactivity before he's able to defend a world title that he didn't win because he was strung along holding an interim title. So John Jones could take on Stipe Miocic, a fight that not many people had much interest in, 2 very old fighters going at it. So that's the problem with Zuffa Boxing, and unfortunately the WBC isn't perfect either. I do hope that they get a hold of this situation and that they do the right thing by Agit Kabayel and mandate this fight, because it will be a shame if Agit Kabayel goes down as one of these fighters that don't get to fight for a world title, don't become a world champion, or even worse, we see him in a world title fight 3 or 4 years past his expiration date, because that will put a very sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. And unfortunately, what I've said here, there's a very clear path of that happening. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully Usyk takes on Rico Verhoeven. There's a bit of backlash and the WBC come out and say, look, Usyk, you either take on Kabayel or you give away that belt. All right, I have no problem if Usyk wants to take on Fury, if he wants to take on Fabio Wardley, Daniel Dubois, don't hold up the division. Don't hold up people that are, working their asses off for that belt, because this run for Agit Kabayel deserves, the grace of fighting for a world title. Fury, who's coming off back-to-back losses and a retirement, doesn't. Daniel Dubois taking on Fabio Wardley off a loss, doesn't. Agit Kabayel sat there on his hands after this unbelievable run that he's on, like Frank Sanchez, Arslanbek Makhmudov, and Zhili Zhang. What else has the guy got to do? Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm out of you guys. See ya!